movie is, which is called Black Suns, is Dr. Jarita Holbrook, who is now at the National Science Foundation.
I'm not.
Who was, until recently, at the National Science Foundation. Dr. Holbrook.
Okay, how do we change this?
Oh, I'm sorry. I should have done that. Okay.
Right. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm actually back to being a professor in South Africa at the University of the Western Cape, but I'm in residence in Virginia until the summer. So I wanted to speak to you today about my film. Is it go? Let's start it. Okay. Black Suns, an astrophysics adventure. It's going to be playing on tomorrow night at 7:30 in Maryland Ballroom C. So that's the punchline. And I'll tell you again at the end of this. So I've tried to be very clever and have these timed. So I'll just sit here and yak at you and the images will start going past. So in some ways I feel like Black Suns, bringing it into this forum is old news because we're talking about the 2012 eclipse. We're not talking about the 2017 eclipse. But Jay is a big fan of the movie, and so he dragged me to speak about it again. And this story goes back to 2006, when we were preparing for the total solar eclipse in Ghana. And part of that, I put on a big conference, and we wanted to have an eclipse broadcast. And so I went back to what Exploratorium had done in 2001. And they had done an eclipse broadcast, which was extremely problematic, which I've written a paper on and you can get it online. But also as part of that eclipse, I met Alphonse Sterling, who is a solar astrophysics, and at that time he was based in Tokyo, Japan, as well as Hakeem Oluseyi, who I knew from years before. And watching the two, they were doing a collaborative project studying the solar corona, and there's Alphonse in the yellow shirt and Hakeem in the green shirt. And I got to watch the two of them interact. And both of them are African-American men, and I'm African-American, even in spite of living in Africa. And the way that they interact it's hysterical. And like you've just never seen, well, you'll see it in the film tomorrow night. And I thought, there's actually something here. There's a movie here. And here's the screen splash of the actual eclipse broadcast that we did, which we partnered with Morehouse University Media Studies Department. So this was kind of my first foray into making a film. And this is about 20 minutes long. I think it's on YouTube somewhere. I need to link it to my YouTube account. So we did things that were different compared to what the Exploratorium did, and mainly to emphasize that Africa is a place that actually has science and scientists. You don't have to keep importing them from other places. So we get to 2012, and I have another award-winning film which was shown at AAS called Hubble's Diverse Universe, which was released in 2009. And I was promoting that film when I ran into Kelvin Phillips, who is the co-director of Black Suns. That's Kelvin Phillips. I'm almost on time. And when you're at these awards ceremonies, they ask you, well, what are you doing next? Or what do you want to do? And I said, I want to do a film following these two African-American astrophysicists who have really different personalities, but are friends and colleagues. And he said, I want to do that with you, like a month later. And this was the beginning of 2012. And of course, if you remember, May 2012 was the annular eclipse, which passed through Tokyo. So in order to get money for that, in April, we kickstarted, which was 3 slides back. And it was a very painful experience. I do not recommend that people kickstart. It's a lot of work. It was a month of full-time work. But a lot of people in the astronomy communities, including some people in this room, donated money so that we could go to Tokyo and begin the process of making Black Suns. So that's a little bit unusual. So we had enough money to go. We took students, because Kelvin was based in Austin, Texas. We use UT Austin Media and Film Studies students to be our camera people in Tokyo. But we didn't have enough money to do the real eclipse, which was in Cairns, Australia. So then it was more fundraising, and we appealed to the National Science Foundation. And they gave us a grant that was big enough that we could take everyone to Cairns, Australia, and film the total solar eclipse. So, of course, this is one of the images from Cairns that Alphonse took. So that's how we got from 2006 to 2012. And there's two stars in the film. One, of course, is Hakeem, and the other you see in the blue shirt is Alphonse. And this sort of is symbolic of their relationship, that if you've ever met Hakeem, you'll never forget it. He's loud, he's big, he's jovial, and then quietly in the back, correcting him, is Alphonse, right? And when I was pulling together images of Alphonse, like we have stills, I had a hard time finding my stills of Alphonse. But here's some of the stills of Alphonse, and you see he's in the background, quiet. And so I really have to go back through the film and grab some stills where he's in the foreground, because he was in the foreground as well. So when the film was completed, we went through a couple of test runs with various audiences. And that's when I discovered another level of racism among astronomers, which is when we advertised for this screening, we put in the title, we said, okay, we're following solar astrophysicists as they try blah, 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 blah. And one of the comments was, you didn't tell us this was about black people. We don't think it's fair that in your ad you didn't say that they were black. And I was like, oh my God, they think this is like a valid thing to write down? I have this for all time. It's data. It's data. So, and so then I had to think about, okay, as I move forward and I advertise this film, do I say African American so that those people who don't want to see African Americans on film can recuse themselves? And I'm like, well, you know something, they can walk out. I don't care. They don't want to watch it, fine. You know, they've got their other documentaries to watch. So that was really astounding to me. And we took that cut and we had to bring it down. That cut was about an hour. And so we cut nearly 15 minutes to just make it a tighter film. Now, that said, for the most part, whenever we showed it to astronomers, they loved it. They loved it. Like, Jarita, how soon can you get this finished? We want it for our classroom. And you're going to ask me the same question. When is this going to be available? It's not available yet. Okay, so these are some of the behind the scenes. And the person to my right there is our A camera, who was one of my anthropology students when I was still a professor at University of Arizona. And that's Amy Steele, who just walked in. Amy, in the very back there. And this was when she was at Wesley, right? Getting her master's degree. And you see Alphonse is in the back, and then Roderick is there. So when I was trying to raise money for completing the film, because we finished shooting in 2012, but we didn't release it until 2017 because we needed to finish it. We needed editing and things like that. I took pictures like this, and it's like, have you ever seen anything like this? Like, how many, 6 or 7 African-American people doing solar astrophysics with telescopes? So many things about this film are the first time you've ever seen them in history. For example, Alphonse is fluent in Japanese, right? So we have an African-American solar astrophysicist who is not Japanese, speaking Japanese on film for the first time in history, okay? And so we're cognizant of that, and so I'm hoping after we release it that it's something that we can put into film schools. Like, this is a different kind of documentary, and there's some really cinematic firsts that are embodied in this project and in this film. So it did win a prize, yay. It got the highest prize at the Art of Brooklyn Film Festival in June last year, so it's already an award-winning film. We are still in arguments about how we're going to distribute it. For the Eclipse, it was shown at the Air and Space Museum with both Alphonse and Hakeem. I was out of town. And it was shown, I was at the head meeting in Idaho, so we showed it twice at the head meeting. And so, you know, this is just continuing to go on. And it is made to be in the classroom. So it's about 45 minutes so that you can show it in the classroom, and then you can have 15 minutes of Q&A afterwards. Oh, I wanted to say that for that weekend of the total solar eclipse, we had it streaming for $4 that weekend, but then we took it off stream. So that's the story of Black Sun, and I hope to see you in the audience tomorrow night.
Well, thank you very much, but it's with a heavy heart that I heard your report about the prejudicial comment, which you had not told me about before, and it's really hard to believe. And
We'll continue to surprise
and I hope it is. I hope it was a unique comment that is not widespread and not repeated ever. But it's a great movie. I can vouch for it, and so do come see it tomorrow night. And if you've seen it already, come again.
Is there any questions, or should I move on?
We'll make time for one question. Go ahead. I like the idea of timed slides, actually. I have to do that. Is there a question for Dr. Holbrook?
Good. See you tomorrow night.
Okay. Thank you.